Welcome to Arsenalen, the Swedish Tank Museum. Today everyone is talking about Leopard 2, and since I've been using this tank for some time, I will give you my experience from this tank. I started off as a tank commander at Leopard 2 in 1989 when we did the first trials in Sweden, and we did it over 1 year, and later in 94 we did the training in Germany for educating the Swedish officers and then the conscripts to use this tank when we started off with Leopard 2 and the Swedish Army in 95. And since then we have had Leopard 2, and from my experience it's one of the best tanks in the world. The vehicle behind me is not one of the vehicles that we use today. This is a prototype that was built before the series production began in 1979. But I will talk about Leopard 2 using this as an example, because we don't have a genuine tank in the museum at the moment. The Leopard 2 started production in 1979, and since then almost 4,000 vehicles has been built. Almost all countries in Europe use them today, and Sweden is one of them. And when we did the trials in Sweden in 1989, we didn't have that much knowledge about how they performed, and during that year we did a lot of tests from the southern part of Sweden up to above the Arctic Circle, and during that year we did things that no one thought would be possible to do with a tank. So it was a great tank to test, and it was also an eye-opener for a lot of people. Oh my God, what a modern tank actually can do, since we had the Centurions and yes tanks before that. And we realized that a modern tank is something that we really need to have. The weight of the tank is about 55 to 62 tons, depending on what kind of version you have. The first we started off with was 55-ton tanks, and the ones we use today, they are 62-ton tanks with a lot more protection on the outside that makes it heavier. But it's almost the same underneath. In the turret there is a 12-centimeter smoothbore gun, a 3-man crew with a commander, the gunner and the loader. So this is a manual loaded gun with a driver at the front, sitting there with his steering wheel and the automatic gearbox. This vehicle is very easy to handle, it's very easy to drive, and the performance is absolute fantastic. You have a very powerful engine, a top speed of 72 kilometers an hour, and the acceleration is quite good compared to a lot of other vehicles I've driven. And with the ground pressure that is not that high, you can keep the speed over soft ground, and even if there's soft ground that you normally with a tank would get stuck, this tank could keep the speed, and we went across a lot of these soft ground swamps that had been impossible to cross with any other tank at the time. So we managed to do things with this tank that no one thought was even possible. From swampy grounds in the south of Sweden up to the Arctic Circle, both winter and summertime, we drove everywhere. Of course we got stuck as well. That was part of the plan, to find the limits. How far can we go before it actually gets stuck? Where is the the limits of this tank, but it was very impressive, and it did a lot better than actually thought it would be. The power pack at the rear is a combined engine and gearbox, a 12-cylinder diesel engine from MTU, Germany, 46.2 liters, 1500 horsepower, and that combined with a Renk automatic gearbox. It's a fantastic power pack. Not that much fuel consumption. We did during the tests down to approximately 20-25 liters per 10 kilometers on road, which is quite good. Of course, if you go into very hard terrain, soft ground, etc., the fuel consumption goes up, but it never went that far as it did on the old Centurions. It has more than 1,000 liters of fuel inside, normal diesel fuel, and the power pack is possible to remove and change very quickly. So you can change the power pack if you have something broken in the engine or gearbox. So in less than 30 minutes you can remove it and put it back again, and then the tank is ready to go into action. And I've seen a power pack lift from the tank stops until it moves again. The power pack was lifted out, put down on the ground, and then put back again in 9 minutes. So that's very fast and easy to do, even out in the field. You use some sort of a crane. The power pack is 6,500 kilos, so you need to have a bit bigger crane, but it's very easy to do it. So that's the power pack, the MTU V12 engine. As I said, since this is a prototype, it's not as it looks today, but the principle is the same. In the tank you have a number of these rounds for the gun, and in the rear part of the turret, up here, there is a small room where 15 of these are located, and there is a door between the loader and that ammunition compartment. So if this tank gets a hit into the ammunition will explode, but it will explode out on the outside and not into the tank, protecting the crew from the explosion. So this is something that modern Western tank has adopted. In this tank, the ammunition storage up there is not as big as on the American M1 tank, which has all the ammunition in the rear part of the turret. In the Leopard 2 there is also a storage bin down in the chassis where you have some more ammunition, and depending on how you're going to use them, you can of course leave that part of the ammunition storage empty and only keep it up in the turret. That will make the tank a lot safer to be inside. And if you have seen pictures from Ukraine today with the Russian tanks they use on both sides, if they get a hit, the ammunition storage in the bottom of the tank will explode and the turret will go to the moon and the crew with it. So this is a lot safer tank to operate. These rounds, they are about 20-25 kilos and they are different types. This is the armored piercing fin stabilized round that used against other tanks, but there are also another type with more high explosive used for soft skin vehicles or soldiers. So you have two different kinds of ammunition in the tank. And when loading, you remove this out from the compartment up there in the turret, swing it around and push it into the gun. And since you do this the same, well, you stand in the same position, it's quite fast, even if it's a hand-loaded system. And while loading, the gun is fixed in this position. So you have a loading position. Normally the gun goes up and down since it's stabilized, but when you are loading the gun, it stays like this. The gun sight is still on the target, but the barrel is still, so the loader can do his job without being afraid of getting in the way of the gun. And then when he pushes the loading button, it goes down to stabilization again. On the turret side, on both sides, there are smoke grenade launchers that you can use to protect yourself while reversing into another area. And with the modern ammunition you have in those smoke launchers, you can also protect yourself against modern infrared sights that otherwise would be able to look through the smoke. The top surface of this turret is totally different from the ones that have been in serious production, since this is a prototype, but the principle is the same. The gunner's position is down here, and the commander is sitting behind and above him. On that side there's the loader's hatch, and the rear part over here is where you keep the ammunition storage. The gunner's sight on the Leopard 2 is over here, and it's a combined optic sight with an infrared thermal sight. So you can use the thermal sight both night and day. And it's a very good sight to use even during daytime, because you can locate where you have heat spots from a person or a vehicle, and then you can switch to the day sight and see what it actually is before you fire the gun. The commander had on the older versions a periscope like this up here, and that's possible to rotate 360 degrees to overview, and if you find a target in that direction, you can then press a button and immediately the gun with the gunner's sight will look on the same spot. So you can use this hunter-kill function, and it was very accurate. The drawback with the old periscope is that it's only an optical sight compared to the later ones, which also had an infrared, but that's back here. And with the thermal sight for the commander, you have 200% better tank than the old ones. When driving and firing in during night time with these tanks with the old periscope, the commander was almost blind, couldn't see anything in the darkness. The driver has a periscope with infrared, so he can look out and see where he's driving, and the gunner could look with his thermal sight and find the targets. But as a commander, I couldn't see anything. That was a very big problem that I later solved on the later versions of the Leopard 2 that they use today. The turret was from the beginning hydraulic, with the hydraulic compartment back here. The later versions, they are electric driven, and that is a lot more accurate and not as dangerous, because if you have a hit in the turret with the quite warm hydraulic fluid, that could also cause damages on the crew. So electric power turret is a lot safer and better. We did one lap with the turret in 9 seconds, from like that 360 degrees and back again, and that's quite fast if you going in the terrain trying to find targets. And the gun is very precise, stabilized. Even if it moves a bit, the gun sight is not connected physically to the gun. It's electrically combined with the gun. So when you look through the gun sight, even if the tank is going like this, it's very stable and accurate on the target. And when you push the firing button, everything waits in the system until the gun is on the target before it says bang. So you can go in a very rough terrain and even then hit the target on long range in the middle. We also did, which people thought was, oh, that's impressive, we did a jump and fired the gun in the air, and that's also possible with this, and also of course hit the target. I have seen a lot of Soviet Russian tanks, they are jumping and they're firing against the moon, not hitting the target. So this was very accurate in doing that. When riding in a tank like this, if you are a person that gets seasick quite easy, it's not a job to be inside the tank. When this tank is moving 72 kilometers an hour like this, and the turret is swinging up and down and sideways, looking out through this periscope or through the sights, you see something that's moving on the outside, and you feel the feeling in your body that the tank is moving in another direction that you actually see. This can create seasickness in your head, and it's not something that's very comfortable to do, but that's the thing you have to live with using a tank like this. And the loader on the other side, when he's down there under the hatch, doesn't see anything. So it's just being tossed around on the inside, loading the gun all the time, and the tank is moving around. The best position in the tank is actually the driver's position, because it's very comfortable and he sees what he's doing. The gunner's position, looking out through the periscope, is not that comfortable. The commander's is a bit better, and on the loader side, standing there trying to move your body and to compare, or to be able to withstand the movement of the tank in the turret. It can be a bit tiring after a whole day out moving around. So that was a bit about the Leopard 2, or Leopard 2 as it's called in Germany, built by Krauss-Maffei Wegmann. Thank you for building the best tank in the world. And this is the keyring I got 34 years ago. and I still have it every day. 15 months as a tank commander, 1989. Best job I ever had. See you next time.